Welcome to Fast Pace, the new growth, leadership and management podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Dean Mackey. We wanted to peel back the layers on what happens in the world of fast-paced real estate agencies, from new leadership models to the management challenges we all face each day. This is about a new era in the estate agency sector. Rapid changes to business models, service lines, remuneration and growth present the greatest opportunities that we've ever seen. Sit back, get inspired, grow your skills and reimagine what's possible with Fast Pace. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Josh Phegan Digital. Welcome to a special edition of Fast Pace. Josh Phegan on his own this time round. Dean will be back next week. The interesting conversation today is to talk about the importance of customer experience. Inside of any business, it's absolutely critical that you understand where your brand is going to sit in the marketplace. Are you at the top end of that marketplace in terms of price and value, or are you on the lower end in terms of price and value? Now, why this is such an important conversation is it's really about understanding where your brand sits in the marketplace. Are you the Louis Vuitton, the David Jones, or the reject shop of your market? And this is an interesting conversation because customer experience in our modern world is actually our brand, and brand is pricing power. Now, if you think about it, the ultimate ability to be able to maintain your fee in the lounge room is a really important thing when driving margins inside of any business. But most businesses have not mapped out their customer experiences. What we've learned is that ultimately, if you've got a mapped customer experience, then the likelihood of your sales and property management teams to be able to deliver that experience is much higher. Not only can you teach on it, you can train it, but you can also test it. So this is a really important part of what we actually do in mapping out great campaigns for any real estate office. If you think inside of the sales environment, what is the consumer experience of what actually goes on for a seller from the moment of signing an agency agreement right the way through to the successful completion of that sale on settlement day? And this is a really important part to look at all the individual metrics on the specific strategies of what you actually do during the course of the sales campaign. From simple things like off-market to on-market, what you're doing during the course of launch week, the conversation around what you do when the property is on the market, followed closely by auction week, the actual auction day itself, and what you would do in a post-auction sales process. Now, it's no different inside of our property management business, but what we're looking at specifically is the really clear strategies that are leading to the tactics that are getting to the measurement to make sure that we can minimize any of the friction that consumers experience. Now, if you do this really well, then that actually allows you not only to defend your fee, but ultimately to charge a higher fee in that marketplace. Now, there can only be one real estate agent in every marketplace that is actually going to be the cheapest. So if you go to have a look on the major real estate websites and you find, for example, that there's 29 other competitors in that marketplace, then the other 28 must be able to differentiate based on what they do to design their customer experience. And this is a really important conversation for today's business owners. What you want to be doing is you want to be able to build an enduring business. And in order to build an enduring business, you need to understand where you're going to be sitting in that marketplace. We know that margin is a really important conversation. And one of the richest men in the world, the owner of Louis Vuitton, actually sells you what you want, not what you actually need. Now, when you think about that, people are interested in their selfish desires. What are the things that ultimately buyers, tenants, landlords, and sellers really want in today's modern consumer experience? And how do you map that out so that you can actually teach, train, and test your team to make sure that they go to deliver it? When we go to work with business owners, one of the important conversations is to get really clear about de-risking a business and about making sure that you've built that winning team that can go to deliver that consumer experience and that service. And it starts by having a really clear set of principles that allow you to go to perform at your best. That simple principle could be that if it wouldn't work for 100 customers, then we can't do it for one. And this is such an important part in looking at the scaling of your services that if you're going to do bespoke or very specific service delivery, you need to make sure that it can actually scale. This is where technology has been a really important part in really growing those consumer experiences in the way that we work with not only our landlords, but also too in the way that we go to work with vendors. If we really want to grow our business though, we need to actually make sure that we're de-risking the business as much as possible. And that's really about understanding that no more than 25% of your revenue should really be coming from any one key salesperson. The reason why you want to do that is if you can spread the risk across a number of salespeople, if one person leaves the business, then ultimately it doesn't mean the business ceases to exist. And this is ultimately about removing that key person risk from the business. Another driver is to get the recurring revenue as a percentage of total revenue up. Recurring revenue is a really important part, and what we've seen during a cash flow crisis for a number of business owners is that those that have actually got recurring revenue are the ones that stay resilient throughout the turbulent marketplaces that we experience in different market cycles. What is important is to think that your recurring revenue is normally going to be the revenue that's coming from your property management service line. And if you can get that to be in a position that your recurring revenue can actually be above your recurring expenses, then ultimately you can have a recurring profit. And recurring profits are a great thing because then that allows whatever you do in the sales environment to ultimately be the final cream on the cake. And it's a really important driver to get your business to that point. Now, this might be a quest or a journey that you go on in terms of pursuing this particular vision over a period of a 5 or a 10-year time frame. But it is important because if you get it right, then everything can change on the inside of the business. That then allows you to move into the saleable value of an asset. And we are firm believers that you should always be building a business to sell. What is guaranteed is that as an entrepreneur, there will be a point in time where you will need to exit your business. And when you go to exit, you want to make sure that you can maximize the overall enterprise value. That enterprise value will be impacted by your brand. It will be impacted by the positioning of that brand and the customer experience that you provide. It will be impacted by the percentage of revenue that's actually being driven by any one salesperson. It will be impacted by key person risk, and it will also be impacted by whether or not you've been able to get that recurring revenue to a point that it's higher than the one-off revenue that happens on the inside of your business. It's really critical that you understand where you sit inside of that market dynamics. Are you ultimately at the top end and driving high levels of margin? Or are you in a position that you're at the low end where ultimately you're having to drive volume? Every business wants to cut their costs, and there's no doubt that you can cut your costs, but you can't cut your costs to greatness. But you certainly can reallocate the way that you're spending your funds to make sure that you're actually producing the very best bang for buck for what it is that you're going to do in terms of investment. So now's the time to go and review your strategic plan. Where are you sitting as a business? What percentage of revenue comes from each salesperson? What percentage of your revenue is recurring revenue? And how close are you to that ultimate goal of getting that recurring revenue to be above your recurring expenses so that you can ultimately produce a recurring profit? We look forward to Dean returning next week in our next fast-paced edition. And we really hope that you've enjoyed today's special edition around what it actually takes to build an enduring and great business.